Over the last 100 years or so, there have been many groups of people who meet regularly to sit in what are called mediumistic circles. This is done in the hope of receiving messages from the spirits of their deceased friends and relatives. In a typical sitting or seance, the participants are seated with their hands on top of a table, sometimes with their fingers touching, sometimes not. It is said that the spirit who is supposed to be present often causes a variety of strange physical effects to occur, as is suggested by this engraving made in 1871 when spiritualism was in its heyday. In the old days, there was serious doubt as to whether these phenomena were genuine. It was believed that for them to occur, a specially endowed person known as a spirit medium had to be present if the spirits were to be able to manifest these effects. Undoubtedly, many of these spirit mediums were fraudulent. It was also easy to cheat because it was believed that the sittings, or seances, had to be in darkness or in a subdued light. Research by Sir William Crookes, who worked with the famous medium D.D. Home in a good light, and by Harry Price and other famous investigators who studied Stella Cranshaw in 1923, proved that some of these physical phenomena were genuine and not the result of trickery. Whether we believe in spirits or not, it shows that there are forces in the universe at present unknown to science and different from the four forces known to physicists. In 1972, a group consisting of 8 members of the Society for Psychical Research in Toronto, Canada, decided to find out more about this mysterious force. They wanted to find out, firstly, whether it could be produced in full light. Secondly, whether a spirit medium was necessary or if instead it could be generated by ordinary people. And thirdly, if the force was produced by a disembodied spirit or instead was generated by the living participants in the circle. Dr. George Owen, director of the Toronto Society for Psychical Research, guided the sessions from the beginning.
The members of the group are regarded as perfectly normal people, or as normal as anyone can actually be. 4 are housewives: Sue, Dorothy, Andy, and Iris. Sid is a salesman, Bernice an accountant, Al is an engineer, and Lorne a designer. None of them claims to be a medium. Psychical research is just one of their many diverse interests. As researchers, the group had to be scrupulous in their approach. The first problem they had to solve was this: how to be sure that if they got physical effects, these were not due to a spirit. So they decided to make up a completely fictional character, an imaginary person with the given name of Philip and a completely imaginary biography.
You would make it all right if you think I could.
A week later, she narrated the story of Philip.
This is it. Philip was an aristocratic Englishman living in the middle 1600s at the time of Oliver Cromwell. He was married to a beautiful but cold and frigid wife, Dorothea. One day when out riding, Philip came across a gypsy encampment and saw there a beautiful gypsy girl, Margot, and fell instantly in love with her. He brought her back secretly to live in the gatehouse near the stables of Dittington Manor, his family home. For some time he kept his love nest a secret, but eventually Dorothea, realizing he was keeping someone else there, found Margot and accused her of witchcraft and stealing her husband. Philip was too scared of losing his reputation and his possessions to protest at the trial of Margot, and she was convicted of witchcraft and burned at the stake. Philip subsequently was stricken with remorse. Finally, one morning his body was found at the bottom of the battlements, whence he had cast himself in a fit of agony and remorse.
Oh, that's a nice. You really used your imagination on that one.
The group discussed the life and character they had given Philip until they were all agreed on the details. A picture was drawn by Andy and agreed to be a true likeness of Philip. It should be stressed that though Dittington Manor is a real place, there is no evidence that anyone like Philip ever lived there. In addition, some historical errors were deliberately introduced into the story to emphasize its fictitious nature.
pictured him? Is this the way we've
Oh,
all
yes,
pictured him?
definitely. Yes, I think you've got it exactly. Especially the eyes.
To consolidate the idea of Philip and to put themselves in mutual rapport, the group met weekly to meditate on Philip and his adventures. No apparition of Philip appeared, but observers occasionally noted a slight mistiness in the center of the circle. However, this may merely have resulted from visual fatigue. In the fall of 1973, the group changed their approach as a result of reading articles by Mr. Batcheldor and Mr. Brooks Smith and Mr. Hunt, which appeared in the Journal of the British Society for Psychical Research.
We've been trying to levitate a table.
These investigators had got physical effects by sitting round a table as in the old spiritualist seances. But they created an atmosphere of jollity and relaxation. They told jokes, sang songs, and exhorted the table in a light-hearted way to obey their commands. The Toronto group adopted the same approach, singing such ditties as Lloyd George Knew My Father to the tune of Onward Christian Soldiers, playing music such as Greensleeves or Amazing Grace, and addressing questions to the table as if it really were Philip. And between sittings, objects suggestive of Philip, such as fencing foils, 17th century manuscripts, and pictures of Diddington Hall were kept. For most sittings, the same four-legged table was used.
It's not easy for 8 responsible normal adults to fool around in this way. They had to train themselves in a particular psychological attitude. They had to imitate a stage comedian who may give a very farcical performance on stage, but off the stage is sober and practical.
As soon as the group adopted this new approach, they got phenomena. First there came a vibration in the table. Also, raps came out of the table. They seemed to come from inside the woodwork.
Hello, Philip. Are you there?
Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Philip. Hi, Philip. I heard you bought some more new horses.
Come on. Speak up. Let's hear some knocks.
Come on, let's get some bangs. Come on, let's get going.
Have you brought Dorothea with you? Have you seen Dorothea lately?
No.
No. Would you like to see Dorothea lately?
No.
No.
Didn't you love Dorothea in your time?
No. That was too...
A bit louder, Philip, please.
Yes, we need them louder.
Philip, do it loud.
Good and loud. Good and loud.
Yes. Philip, did you like Dorothea?
That's
Did you love Margot?
Margot.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Say it again. Did you love Margot? Good.
Come on, you can do, Philip. Come on. Come on. Start moving. Come on. They want you to move. Move before they want you to move.
Then the table would actually move. It would glide over the thick piled carpet, or even rear up on 1 or 2 legs only. Attempts to reproduce this motion by pushing always fail. It was impossible to imitate the table's spontaneous motion.
The group has succeeded many times. Visitors have watched their proceedings in bright light or even joined the group at the table. It's clear that there's no possibility that the phenomena are produced by trickery. The Society's research committee under Dr. Owen has taken every precaution to obviate fraud and can state categorically that the phenomena are genuine and paranormal.
We found that Philip, the imaginary communicator, will answer questions put to him by sitters or visitors. 1 rap for yes, 2 raps for no. Philip, of course, has no independent existence. He says just what a majority of the sitters happen to think he ought to say. It is a case of psychokinesis by committee. If a question has an obvious answer, the response, whether in the form of 1 rap or 2, comes promptly and with emphasis. If, however, the members of the committee take time to individually reason out what the question means, or are doubtful as to the right answer, then the response is feebler and delayed.
Dr. Joel Witten, a medical psychologist, was asked to comment.
Well, I'd first like to emphasize that this is an important experiment because it's done in a laboratory and it's reproducible. Now, from a psychological point of view, there are several considerations. First is, I have to ask myself, what are the psychological conditions necessary to produce this phenomenon? Now, it seems to me that the group is in a childlike creativity. This is brought on by the playing and by the singing and the humor. The group lets their hair down. As opposed to the adult who says, this phenomenon can't be done because it's against the laws of physics, the child simply says, if I want to do it, it can be done. Now, second, I ask myself, what does this rapping and the table turning mean symbolically? Is it some type of concentration of energy, or is it an elaborate defense mechanism against some deep-seated unconscious conflict? Third, the group is involved in a joint feeling of mutuality. Each member almost intuitively senses the other person and their feelings, and as such, it has important overtones in various group programs.
Well, I think this Phillips experiment has forced me to look at the whole spectrum of parapsychology. I've always believed that there's a little bit of telepathy and precognition, but 2 years ago, if you had told me that a group of us would be able to take this table and move it without any physical force, I think I would have laughed at you.
Well, I think this whole concept has made me much more aware of energy forces around that before you were aware of but didn't really think about.
I can't see any way that any of us can move the table ourselves, so there's got to be energy or something which would be very interesting if we could find out how it works.
The experiment on Philip has been a very exciting thing for me because it has taken an abstract thought of mine and made it into a concrete experiment.
It's offered an alternative explanation to me to the theory of spirits of the dead causing hauntings. The hauntings seem to be real, but I have no faith in the departed spirits theory.
I think it's been the most exciting parapsychological experiment that I've ever taken part in. We've been interested in these physical phenomena for so many years, and I feel that at last we've made a breakthrough.
The group of 8 has shown that a team of normal, non-mediumistic people can acquire a kind of psychological skill, enabling them to generate a strong physical force without the aid of spirits or supernatural influence. They have proved that this force is latent in most ordinary human beings. To gain understanding of this force, they are continuing their work. They hope also that with new and original variations, it will be imitated by other investigators.
Father knows Lloyd George. Lloyd George knows my father. And Father knows Lloyd George.
Come on, let's get going.
Have you brought Dorothea with you? Have you seen Dorothea lately?
No.
No. Would you like to see Dorothea lately?
No.
No.
Didn't you love Dorothea in your time?
No. That was too.
Yes, we need them louder.
Philip, come on, do it loud.
Good and loud.
Not
Good
much
and loud.
louder. Philip, did you like Dorothea?
That's
love Margot.
Margot.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Say it again. Did you love Margot? Good.
Come on, Philip. Come on. Start moving. Come on. They want you to move. You moved before. They want you to move.
Hello, Philip. Are you there?
Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Philip.
Hi, Philip.
Upside down, up in the air, to dear Christmas. Where your feet planted firmly on the ground, up in the air, to dear Christmas. Up in the air and upside down, up in the air.
Kenneth Batcheldor had evolved a theory that if you trained yourself in a certain psychological skill, which was similar to the Victorian seance room, in other words, if you sat around and you sang repetitive songs and you told jokes and you worked in a relaxed atmosphere
and got into the spirit
and
of
got
the
into
thing.
the spirit, literally the
Yes.
spirit of the thing, you would produce these physical phenomena, the raps and so on.
And did Philip appear?
You're jumping a little. That age, we've said to us, well, it's a physical phenomena. Why shouldn't it produce our ghost? And so we decided to try this. Now, we read the literature very thoroughly, and there are many, many papers on it, and there is a philosophical reasoning as to why it works, and this is too short a program for me to explain it. But we tried it, and the first sitting or two, we were a little bit self-conscious. It's not very easy. We're all serious, scientifically minded people, really. And to sit around and do all this sort of nonsense.
Talk to a table.
Talk to a table wasn't very... We weren't at that stage thinking that we were talking to the table. We were surprised when suddenly one night we heard a rap from the table. Quite a loud rap. And we thought, what is this? And we sat there very much surprised, and I think it was Dorothy said, well, perhaps it's Philip. And immediately there was another rap. And so we said, well, rap once for yes and two for no. Are you Philip? And there was another rap. And so this did surprise us very much. And so we carried on a little conversation like this, rather nonplussed the first time.
Did you get movements then rather quickly?
Shortly afterwards, the table kind of slid a bit.
Right.
And, of course, then we all accused each other of pushing it, naturally. We couldn't believe that it would move.
It really happened? You couldn't believe it yourself?
Oh, no, not at first. And, in fact, the first few months we were watching each other like hawks, and if anybody's finger moved the slightest bit, you're pushing, this sort of thing.
Hello, are you still there?
Oh,
there was a rap.
He loves his beer, perhaps.
Why don't you like
Philip, if you perform, you shall have a nice big pint of beer. Would you like that? Good.
Yes.
Now, that was the loudest rap of the evening.
Yes, he loves beer. He loves beer.
Keep on that theme.
100 beer in the wall.
100 bottles of beer. 100 bottles that happen to fall. 99 bottles of beer on the wall. 99 bottles of beer on the wall. 99 bottles of beer. Would you like 2 bottles of beer?
Oh, the circulation.
Yes, a little bit louder. Louder than that. Let Alan hear that you want 2 bottles.
Come on, Philip, let me hear you.
It.
Let me hear you.
There.
Yeah?
There's a rap.
There.
Now, all hands are visible. Let's just dwell on this point. All hands are visible at this point, yet the raps are clearly coming from, it would appear, certainly from within that table. Let's try it again. Philip, give us a good, loud, clear rap.
For 1 bottle of beer.
Louder than that.
Come on, louder, Philip.
Louder for 2.
Come on, Philip.
Philip, if you want a bottle of beer, rap loudly.
That's just...
Louder, Philip?
Come on, Philip, louder. Here comes the microphone.
It has to be louder, Alan won't buy it.
Come on, Philip.
Come on.
What? I didn't hear
Right under the microphone, Philip.
Right here, Phil.
Yeah,
Right here.
keep your
Right
hands
here.
up.
No, he's doing it over in
Come on,
that corner.
come on, Philip, louder and louder.
Louder.
That's better. Oh, good for you, Philip. You should have your bottle of beer.
Congratulations, Philip.
Hauntings. The hauntings seem to be real, but I have no faith in the departed spirits theory.
I think it's been the most exciting parapsychological experiment that I've ever taken part in. We've been interested in these physical phenomena for so many years, and I feel that at last we've made a breakthrough.
Well, I'd first like to emphasize that this is an important experiment because it's done in a laboratory and it's reproducible.